Why is Puerto Rico poor if it belongs to the U.S.? Puerto Rico has a rich and complex history shaped by colonization, slavery, and resistance. From Spanish colonial rule to U.S. invasion, Puerto Rico has faced a number of challenges over the years. It is a political paradox, part of the United States, but distinct from it, enjoying citizenship but lacking full political representation, and infused with its own brand of nationalism, despite not being a sovereign state. More than a century after being acquired by the United States from Spain, the island continues to grapple with its status as a U.S. territory and the legacy of colonialism in the Caribbean. Despite all this, Puerto Rico remains a vibrant and resilient community with a rich cultural heritage and a strong sense of identity and pride. The current crisis has a lot to do with the political status of Puerto Rico. Its political status is that of a unincorporated territory of the United States. This basically means that Puerto Rico is neither a sovereign state nor a U.S. state, but rather a territory that is subject to the authority of the U.S. government. The island's government is not fully autonomous, and the degree of federal presence in the island is commonplace, including a branch of the United States Federal District Court. The political status of Puerto Rico has been unresolved since it became a territory in the United States in 1898. Political rights are somewhat limited. While Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, they cannot vote in presidential elections, and they lack full representation in Congress. The island has a non-voting resident commissioner who serves in the House of Representatives but has no voting power. Additionally, Puerto Rico does not have voting representation in the Senate. Puerto Rico has a local government headed by a governor and a bicameral legislature. However, some powers are reserved for the U.S. federal government, and Puerto Rico remains subject to U.S. laws and regulations. The lack of full political representation and autonomy has had a significant impact on Puerto Rico's economic development. The island's economy is heavily dependent on U.S. federal funding and support, which can be unpredictable and subject to political changes. Additionally, the U.S. government has imposed trade policies and regulations that have favored mainland businesses and hindered Puerto Rico's ability to compete in global markets. The island's debt crisis, which began in 2015 and is still ongoing, has also been exacerbated by its political status and limited access to financial resources. This clearly shows that being an unincorporated territory of the United States is having a dire impact on its economy, and it is not allowing it to thrive. Puerto Rico's debt crisis has been a long-standing issue that has been exacerbated by various factors, including economic decline, oppressive social spending, and a declining population. The crisis began in 2014 when 3 major credit agencies downgraded several bond issues by the government, and investors became concerned that it would eventually default on its debt. As of today, the issue has seen some progress, but there is still work to be done to put the Commonwealth on a sustainable fiscal path. Puerto Rico's national debt is approximately $74 billion, and the Commonwealth is not protected by Chapter 9 of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code. This means that they cannot file for bankruptcy as they are technically not part of the mainland. According to Title 11 of the same chapter, they also can't apply for debt relief. This puts them at a very difficult situation where they can neither pay the debts nor seek debt relief. The political parties in the Commonwealth, which are distinct from the mainland's Democratic and Republic blocs, hold different views on changing the island's status. The 5 major positions are statehood, independence, free association, Commonwealth, and status quo. The basic problem is the dependence and subordination inherent in colonialism, not only legal and political, but also economic and cultural. The island's relationship with the rest of the United States is the subject of vigorous debate. The centrist Popular Democratic Party has historically championed the Commonwealth status quo, while the pro-statehood New Progressive Party has pushed for statehood. The impact of Puerto Rico's colonial status on its economy has been significant. The island's economic development has been hindered by its status as a U.S. territory, which has limited its ability to negotiate trade agreements and access international markets. Puerto Rico's political parties share equal responsibility for the economic environment and social crisis that afflicts the island. The island's relationship with America has been a source of political struggle for a definition of its status, a struggle that has lasted into the 21st century. The importance of resolving Puerto Rico's colonial status is crucial. It has a direct impact on the island's economy and the well-being of its people. Due to these economic problems, population exodus has become an issue that the island has been facing for years. It has suffered a string of disasters and setbacks that have led to an exodus of island residents to the U.S. mainland, including drought, earthquakes, and thrashings from hurricanes, the worst of which was Hurricane Maria in September 2017. The population has been declining for nearly a decade, and the pace of decline has accelerated in recent years. This is mainly because the island's economy has been struggling for years, with high levels of debt and a lack of economic opportunities. The elimination of Section 936, which provided tax incentives for U.S. companies to invest in the country, has had a significant impact on the island's economy. The financial struggles in Puerto Rico are deeper than in the rest of the United States, with lower financial well-being, limited access to fair and affordable financial services and products, and systemic barriers and challenges that limit economic mobility. High unemployment poses a significant challenge to the island's economic stability. Data from Trading Economics indicates that, on average, the unemployment rate has remained at 14.28% since 1976, reaching a peak of 25.30% in January 1983. However, according to recent Statista data, there was a 1.9 percentage point decline in 2022 compared to the previous year. This unemployment concern is a crucial indicator of economic health. Alongside GDP and CPI, when the rate increases, it signifies economic distress, while extremely low rates can indicate an overheated economy. Employment levels are closely tied to overall economic growth. When assessing an economy's health, the national unemployment rate significantly influences monetary policy and strategic economic decisions. Those without jobs need at least basic sustenance during their unemployment period. This means that in economies with high joblessness, there's reduced output without a proportional decline in the need for essential consumption. Prolonged high unemployment can be a sign of severe economic distress and may lead to social and political upheaval. A major factor that is hindering the island's economic growth is the Jones Act of 1920 that mandates that only U.S. citizen or resident-owned and operated ships can transport goods between U.S. ports. Introduced to stimulate the post-World War I shipping industry, it restricts foreign carriers from domestic routes, promoting domestic shipbuilding and crew employment while allowing injured sailors to seek damages. The Jones Act significantly impacts Puerto Rico's economy by increasing the cost of living due to higher shipping costs on U.S. vessels. Critics argue it hampers economic growth and disaster recovery efforts. It has played a pivotal role in daily lives of Puerto Ricans. We are seeing an unprecedented hike in inflation rates, which is a matter of concern in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. The inflation rate has been very high. In response, the Federal Reserve is expected to keep interest rates high to combat inflation. The conventional view among economists is that higher interest rates lead to lower inflation, as higher interest rates increase the cost of borrowing and dampen demand across the economy, resulting in excess supply and lower inflation. The Federal Reserve attempts to control inflation by raising interest rates, and when inflation is too high, it typically raises interest and tries to bring inflation down. However, interest rates and inflation tend to move in the same direction, but with lags, because policymakers require data to estimate future inflation trends, and the interest rates they set take time to fully affect the economy. If inflation continues to cool down, the Fed is more likely to stop raising interest rates for the time being. The persistent inflation contributed to the dramatic increases in interest rates over the last year and a half, with the Fed raising rates from just above zero in early 2022 to their current range of 5.25% to 5.50%. The Fed's moves were intended to stem inflation by slowing the economy, but the job market has stayed tight and wages have continued to increase. The high interest rates are expected to affect individuals and businesses as it becomes more expensive to borrow money. There is an ongoing political debate on how to cope with all these economical issues. It isn't very positive, though. There are differences between political parties, and resolution of the issue seems difficult. While Republicans have advocated for fiscal reforms and oversight to address the debt crisis, Democrats, on the other hand, have sought greater autonomy for Puerto Rico to declare bankruptcy independently. Both of these are potential solutions, but nobody can say anything for sure. As for now, things seem really shaky for Puerto Rico. The economy is a mess, and the political status remains unclear.